the launch of the war within less than a week away, our team has spent hundreds of hours on the beta testing every spec in the game to bring you the final best specs you can main and losers to try and avoid. Remember, if the spec isn't on this list, it is generally floating in the middle of the pack, which is not a bad thing. This list of specs is simply highlighting the best specs and some on the lower end that aren't doing too well and need some work, whether it be numbers-wise or simply from a design standpoint. But before we get into the video, War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available now for free on PC and consoles. You got planes, ships, tanks, helicopters, not to mention over 2,500 different vehicles from 10 major nations, spanning over 100 years of history. War Thunder has fantastic graphics, especially when, you crank it up to 4K, put on those noise-canceling headphones. It really makes for such a, immersive gaming experience. It's really crazy. They even all model their vehicles down to every last detail to what these high quality machines look like in real life, but that's not all. It's not just the visuals of the vehicles, it's the gameplay as well, with its realistic graphics and authentic sound effects. Their damage simulation in combat is very accurate, also, highlighted by their X-ray feature that is so helpful when you're trying to take down opponents in specific ways. Where War Thunder really makes me feel like I'm back in the early 2000s of gaming, playing games like Conflict Desert Storm, the old Call of Duty games. It's just simply there to get me in the action, have fun like I used to, no stress, no drama. There's even comprehensive customization with all of your vehicle's features, including, camouflages, historical markings, decorations, and more. The craziest thing is that it's completely free to try now with crossplay on PC, PlayStation, Xbox. Join your friends in a community of over 70 million players. Check out my link in the video description or pinned comment to sign up and support the channel. New and returning players who haven't played in the last 6 months receive a massive bonus pack for free using the link to get you started in the game. 3 different premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account time, all for absolutely free. So click the link below. Let's have some fun playing army games like we used to, man. Shout out War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. To get back to the content now. Okay, now heading into the winners, first up we have the Arcane Mage. And wow, oh wow, is the Arcane Mage loads of fun heading into the new expansion. Not only that, they're also still blasting numbers-wise, so it looks like Arcane easily could be one of the best DPS specs in the game overall. The developers took what was once a super bloated, complicated spec and condensed it into something that is truly just so incredible and feels so fluid, so much fun, and personally has my vote for being the most fun class in the game. You are constantly spamming arcane barrages and arcane orbs due to passives like, orb barrage, which literally shoots orbs passively. You have high voltage, which causes arcane missiles to generate arcane charges. So things just feel so nice right now for the Arcane Mage. You quite literally see your damage go nuclear with your heavy offensive cooldowns like Touch of the Magi and Arcane Surge being paired together, and then with some interesting rotational aspects, you have massive explosions from your capstone Magi Spark, which is one of the most satisfying things so far. Not only that, you have 2 sets of hero talents that are very fun, they're designed nice, and recently, the Sunfury hero talent tree actually just got buffed significantly, making it perform better than the Spellslinger, which is a really big surprise. Not only that, it's visually very nice, it's amazing. You summon your Arcane Phoenix that deals some nice damage, it adds some intricacies into the gameplay, which is fun as well, and the damage is absolutely there. I can't find one fault about the Arcane Mage as of right now, because all across the board, it is winning. It's hitting really hard, one of the most fun specs in the game that's designed very well, and pretty damn straightforward. Arcane Mage is absolutely winning heading into the new expansion. Next up for winners, surprisingly, we have the Enhancement Shaman. Listen, I'm not gonna lie, a little over a month ago, I was pretty damn worried about the Shaman class overall because a lot of players weren't loving it in its current state on the beta, but that all changed when the class got its rework, and it has done a complete 180. Enhancement Shaman in particular is the biggest winner because not only have they readjusted some key talent nodes in the Enhancement Shaman tree to make your build variety much more flexible, they've also lowered the cooldowns on key abilities like Doom Winds and stuff. They gave you a nice raid-wide buff, and they amplified your damage pretty much to the moon, making Enhancement Shaman incredible when it comes to melee DPS right now. The only minor drawback I have to say, and this is pretty controversial, is that the class is a little bit bloated when it comes to buttons and rotation, but if you have some experience playing WoW, that should not be a problem. They have their new and buffed Stormbringer hero talent tree, which, you know, your Tempest ability in Mythic Plus environment is equaling out to like 20%, 25% of your total damage, which is insane. You also summon your Ghost Wolves with the tree, enhancing your lightning damage. Not only that, the talent tree is visually very appealing and nice to look at. Damage numbers are still there as well, making it a total win from a hero talent tree perspective. I do think the totemic hero talent tree still needs some minor adjustments because it is still behind Stormbringer in both single target and AoE, but yet again, it is still a very fun hero talent tree that gives you some nice variety of gameplay. It enhances some of your abilities, and it gives you a totem that deals some very nice consistent AoE damage, a lot more consistent than Tempest. Either way though, I think both of Enhancement Shaman's talent trees are very, very fun, and they're both impactful. They both visually look very appealing. Thematically, they're great. I was quite worried about Enhancement Shaman heading to the new expansion, and things weren't really looking too good, but with some talent adjustments, some buffs, 2 new hero talent trees, a brand new, raid buff, they're looking very, very good, and Enhancement is absolutely winning right now. Now, moving on to our next range DPS, we actually have Affliction Warlock, and I'm going to be honest, this spec was not performing really great throughout Dragonflight. But I gotta break it to you, Affliction Warlock has been easily manhandling destruction and demonology throughout the entire beta so far. I gotta say, as a damage over time base class, I really, really like Affliction Warlock. I think it's very easy to be able to get all your damage over time effects out there. You spread them on all your enemies using Seed of Corruption to spread corruption, and then you have Vile Taint to spread your Curse of Agony. Then from there, you're just spamming Malefic Rapture, going about your rotation, and you're nuking enemies down, and things feel really, really good from a gameplay perspective. My favorite part has to be that both of their hero talent trees are really good. They're both effective. You have your new and improved Corruption with Wither on the Hellcaller hero talent tree that deals some very juicy damage over time, also giving you a nice 1-minute cooldown, activatable ability to greatly increase your haste, while also amplifying your damage over time effects to hit way harder. So it's very simple, visually appealing, easy to jump into. So for Mythic Plus, people are playing Hellcaller, but for single target, pretty much like raiding environment, they're ditching that. They're going to Soul Harvester. I personally don't mind that you have, one talent tree meant for Mythic Plus, one talent tree meant for single target and raid. I think it's very cool for a class to use both of your hero talent trees effectively. I think it's great for build variety. So Soul Harvester is really, really nice with all their passives, amplifying your damage on your abilities like Shadow Bolt, Drain Soul, depending on what option you choose, greatly enhancing your Nightfall damage and proc chance while enhancing Soul Shards to occasionally summon a demon that will deal some nice damage for you as well. Overall, when it comes to Affliction Lock, as a caster DPS, I really, really love how straightforward the gameplay is, how both your hero talent trees actually have a place and are impactful. They incentivize gameplay variety, and it will make this spec very fun for a long time if you only have 1 or 2 classes to play. I'm loving the changes to the talent tree. The spec is straightforward, nice consistent damage with 2 sets of hero talent trees that are fantastic, impactful. Love the Affliction Lock so far. And now, our next big melee DPS winner, you guessed it, we have the Unholy Death Knight. Listen, I'm gonna be honest, Unholy Death Knight has been getting nerfed constantly, and the reason why this spec is on this list is not only because the damage is super high, but it's easily one of the most fun and unique melee classes in the entire game. It's amazing thematically, while also bringing 2 of the most fun hero talent trees in the game. Pretty much with the rotation, you get your Festering Wounds stacked up on a target, you spread all those wounds around to enemies nearby with Vile Contagion and Defile, and then you literally just spam pop all your wounds while spamming Outbreak as well. And the clash is just so satisfying, man, as you're just seeing what feels like a bunch of numbers pop up on your screen and like break your eyes at some point, destroying enemies. It's really, really cool. Not only that, you're summoning your army of the dead with Apocalypse. You have your giant abomination coming out, fighting for you, spreading your diseases. And to make it even crazier, you even have the Riders of the Apocalypse aid you in battle as well. This hero talent tree is one of my favorites in the game. You're literally seeing Riders of the Apocalypse come out and aid you in battle, dealing heavy damage and, amplifying you in combat. And you can even summon all 4 of them at once instantly when you bring out your abomination out to fight, which is like every minute and a half or so. And it's very, very satisfying to watch all your minions just annihilate enemies for you. Shockingly, they even have a second hero talent tree that is another one of my favorites in the game, which is the Sand Lane hero talent tree, which really brings out, that bloody vampire theme to just drain stats from enemies. It enhances your power, like uber charging you in combat. Occasionally, you have a chance to proc your Scourge Strike to become Vampiric Strike, which greatly deals more damage while also granting you increased haste, which makes your entire rotation feel much better. Not only that though, when you summon your Abomination, you literally get the buff throughout the entire duration to where you can spam Vampiric Strike over and over and over again to deal massive AoE damage with an awesome sound effect that increases your haste tenfold. It is so awesome. I love the gameplay of Unholy Death Knight. Easily by far one of my favorite class specs in the entire game, while, you know, not only being incredible thematically, you have very, very high DPS for both single target and AoE, 2 hero talent trees that are fun, and a wide variety of builds to test out and play. Unholy Death Knight, easily one of the biggest winners heading into new expansion, by far in my opinion. And lastly, with our DPS, we do have an honorable mention with the Havoc Demon Hunter. Originally, this class spec wasn't going to make this list as of a couple weeks ago, but I'm not gonna lie, this class is looking pretty damn good right now. To make this short and sweet, class is easily one of the most flashiest in the game. You know, you're flying around in combat constantly. You have some incredible visuals and procs to transform you into demon state, which is visually very nice, and the gameplay is enhancing as well. As of right now, Fellsguard is still behind Eldrachi Reaver when it comes to single target, but it's very similar in Mythic Plus and AoE, which in my opinion is a very win and could incentivize some great build variety. I think it's very cool if a class hero talent tree, you know, has one dedicated to raid and another for Mythic Plus, so I think that's a big win. When it comes to raiding throughout the entire War Within beta, the so-called mover build being paired with Eldrachi Reaver, which is all about maintaining those micro buffs to enhance your damage in short windows, has been performing the best. But things are slowly changing and players are just playing a new build now that's performing, you know, just as well, if not better. That's all about keeping you in Metamorphosis form as long as possible with, you know, talents like Shattered Destiny, Cycle of Hatred, and just giga buffing you in there to make your single target damage through the roof, which could be interesting to see in the next few weeks to how it actually performs in the new expansion. Overall, I love Demon Hunter thematically. I think the class is doing very nice DPS-wise right now after all the buffs over the last month. I just really hope they continue to move away from that mover build as it's just way too complicated. It's too micro-burst windowy, and honestly, it's just nothing but a headache. I do think they have 2 great hero talent trees, variety of builds that are doing solid damage. I think the Demon Hunter deserves at least an honorable mention. And now, moving on to the tanks, the King of Dragonflight Season 3 and Season 4 is back. And some would say with the vengeance. All right, all jokes aside, even though their crowd control was cut in half, because let's be honest, it was overpowered before, this class still brings great control for your group in Mythic Plus as a tank. Not only that, you're easily one of the most mobile tanks in the game. You have a very low skill floor, so the class is pretty easy to, you know, learn and pick up. So if you're a newer player, it could be great for you. You have damage intake that is pretty damn smooth as well. You have very high parry and dodge chance. You just pretty much ignore damage completely at some points. And once again, a quick TLDR of their hero talents, which we kind of just broke down with Havoc, is that Eldrachi is better for single target, and Fellsguard is better for, you know, enhancing your major cooldown windows in an AoE scenario, while also increasing your survivability. Not only that, of course, you bring your Chaos Brand, which amplifies your caster's damage by 5%, which is always great for grouping. So now because, you know, Vengeance has multiple hero talent trees that could be used, 5% debuff toward your enemies with a skill floor that's very low and a ceiling that's very high. That is the reason why I think they are one of the bigger winners compared to some of the other specs out there, because this class has a lot of potential once again with Vengeance Demon Hunter in all forms of content. Moving on lastly to our biggest winner for tanks, believe it or not, the Blood Death Knight right now is doing fantastic. Blood DK right off the bat, you gotta know, is probably the best tank in the game when it comes to options with buttons to press whenever you're in danger. I mean, you have a ton of cooldowns you could press to increase your survivability. You have Dancing Rune Weapon, Rune Tap, Consumption, Blood Drinker, Bone Storm if you're spec into it, Icebound Fortitude, Vampiric Blood, I mean, Anti-Magic Shell. There are a ton of buttons you can press to save your life. So I will say, I think Blood Death Knight is one of the easier specs to play in the game. You take some damage, you pop a couple cooldowns, and you spam Death Strike whenever, you know, that 5-second window is activated, and you're pretty much good to go. I think the skill floor for them is pretty low, but once again, like Vengeance, I think the skill ceiling is very high, and proper cooldown management is going to play an important role. Once again, I really love Death Knight's utility in a Mythic Plus environment. You know, you got your Gorfiend's Grasp as well as Abomination Limb to just AoE group enemies together, make it like shooting fish in a barrel for your DPS to just nuke them all down. I do think Blood Death Knight is one of the best also like solo tanking, carrying classes in the game, meaning that they aren't as reliant on a healer as some of the other tanks out there. They have very nice self-healing and cooldowns. They can kind of carry a Mythic Plus if you know what you're doing. So that's a big benefit as well. I do think both of their hero talents are great with, Deathbringer bringing you some very high damage with Exterminate, as well as some consistent damage mitigation with Rune Carved Plates, which is a passive that reduces all the damage you take by 10%. Pretty much kind of like permanently. Listen, overall, I love the Blood Death Knight. If you're a player that likes to play solo and can really hone in and dial in and focus on what's going on, pretty much take over the entire, Mythic Plus on your own, it's definitely not a consistent intake damage class. So you're going to have to be on the ball. But if you are, I think the class is doing fantastic right now. Moving on now to our first healer with the biggest winners, we have the Holy Paladin, and boy, oh boy, am I loving Holy Paladin right now. Everybody can agree that in Dragonflight, they did not feel too great, but with them moving away from Glimmer and Daybreak and focusing on, like improving your Holy Shock, improving your Holy Spenders, and just pruning the spec, things feel really good right now. Not only that, you have two great options of hero talent trees that give you a wide variety of gameplay. The first one being Herald of the Sun, where after you use a Holy Prism or Barrier of Faith, your next two Holy Powers get a nice chunky heal over time effect attached to them, which feels really good in a raiding environment, and it's shooting them up to near the top in terms of healing per second. On top of that, you have your Internal Flame, which is, your new and improved Word of Glory, which is another massive heal over time effect. There's also a nice gameplay integration in that talent tree where your heal over time effects have a chance to increase your next Holy Shock by like 200% of effectiveness, which makes it very impactful and juicy to use. And then lastly, with your capstone, you have your laser beams coming out whenever you pop your Avenging Wrath, which is visually, very nice, increasing your healing, increasing some damage with Herald of the Sun. I really, really love this spec. Very nice overall. You also do have the Lightsmith, which is better for some, more utility and brings you some nice buffing toward your allies. If you need some more utility rather than raw healing, you toss out your Holy Bulwark, which increases your allies' damage or gives them a nice chunky shield to increase their survivability. I will say, don't think the numbers on this are tuned very well, and I don't think they're kind of great. They're either, super broken and OP or they're underwhelming. So I think they got to find that middle ground. But overall, I think you compare something like this with an Augmentation Evoker and just soup up your allies like tenfold. I think it'd be really, really cool to pair together. Overall, I'm loving the rework for Holy Pally. Thematically, they're great with two fantastic hero talent trees that could bring some nice, build variety, which is always great. I love the spec heading into new expansion. And next up for our biggest winner when it comes to healers, we have the Restoration Shaman. And if you've been involved in the healing community at all the last few months, people are raving about this spec right now. Recently, Resto Shaman got a nice big update, while also giving them, their raid-wide buff being Sky Fury, which makes you very, very valuable. The class tree has been redesigned and way more streamlined, making it very good for all three of the Shaman specs. So you have access to talents like, Ancestral Recall, Ancestral Guidance type, Totemic Recall. You have brand new defensives like the Stone Bulwark Totem that just got buffed. So just from a class talent tree perspective, Shaman is very, very good now. I do think their base class talent tree with Restoration focuses a bit too much about Riptide because, both their hero talent trees really incentivize you to use Chain Heal, which is a bit odd. But overall, I love that they condensed a lot of the 2-pointers down to 1-point nodes for some nice flexibility. When it comes to hero talents, I gotta say, I really like Totemic a lot more than Farseer. It greatly enhances the capabilities of your totems, like Healing Stream Totem, Spirit Link. Not only that, you get Surging Totem, which keeps up your enhanced healing rain attached to that totem, which, you can flexibly move around with Totemic Projection, which feels really nice. Not only that, you can have your Chain Heals connect to your totems, making it spread to nearby allies a lot easier, and things just feel a lot more interactive and fluid now. Normally with Resto Shaman, you kind of have some delayed gratification with your totems, but with this hero talent tree, it greatly enhances them, and the second you drop them down, you feel something happening and it feels impactful, which is really, really nice as a healer. I'm loving the visuals of Restoration Shaman right now. I'm loving how fluid the spec feels and how mobile your healing rain is now, which is so much better, tying it to your Totemic Projection and Surging Totem. You have big chunky AoE heals, AoE cooldowns to keep your party alive, and things feel really, really good, man. I love the Resto Shaman right now. Okay, now moving on to the class specs that I would avoid. I'm not necessarily saying that these classes are bad or they're awful. I just think that they need some work and they have some issues that need to be addressed, and some design and tuning needs to come in for these specs because it's not looking great right now. Starting off first, we have what could be the worst spec in the game, the Balanced Druid. I'm going to say it up front, the Balanced Druid has a lot of problems. Their class-specific talent tree is very outdated and just really bad. They probably are the squishiest DPS class in the entire game. The balanced druid talent design in itself also is full of a bunch of like 2.0s, and it's very, very strict talent tree. Honestly, it leaves very little room for creativity and other build design because you're constantly chokeholded into very specific builds. Not only that, the balanced druid is, you know, the damage, no matter what hero talent tree or build you go, just isn't as high as some of the other classes out there. The biggest benefit of the Elun's Grace hero talent tree is the cooldown reduction on your Fury of Elun, and that the damage increase to your Starfire, which doesn't even feel good considering Starfire's a builder, and, you know, it makes your spenders feel just so unimpactful. I really would want them to maybe reduce the amount of spenders you're able to pump out, but increasing their damage by like 300% to make them feel more impactful, because right now, they feel bad to use. They're down a hero talent tree because Keeper of the Grove is one of the worst hero talent trees in the game. It's almost useless, and Elun's Grace is pretty much your only option. They're in desperate need of a redesign. The rotation's outdated and pretty damn boring. The only great thing going for this spec is the animations and sound design, because they actually have some of the best in the game. I love them. Other than that, though, man, Druid is in desperate need of some love, so hopefully they get it soon. And next up on the list, it isn't a shocker. You guessed it, we actually have the Feral Druid as well. The reason I have Feral Druid as one of the biggest losers is very simple. This class recently got updates and buffs like 2 or 3 patches straight, and still the damage numbers and gameplay just feel not too good, man. The animations feel unimpactful, the rotation is boring and outdated, the talent tree is full of nonsense and isn't well designed or pathable. It just feels bad, man. The only moments where this class actually feels great is during your incarnation windows where you're spamming combo point finishers over and over again. You have your generators feel impactful, the energy cost is very low, and your rotation's very fast-paced and impactful, and it feels good. Other than that, this spec does not feel great. It's very stiff, it's not fluid. I think the class is in desperate need of an overhaul or update. I don't think we can actually consider this a complete DPS spec when you have classes that feel so good, like Arcane Mage, Enhancement Shaman, Unholy DK, Ret Pally, Fury Warrior. I can go on and on about all the classes that feel so much better and more impactful than this spec, and it's kind of sad. When it comes to hero talents, you have the Wild Stalker, which amplifies your healing way too much, which is just odd. There's just too much BS going on with not increasing your damage, and it's just very poorly designed. Your damage over time effects pretty much have a chance to proc a Bloodseeker Vine on the target that deals nice damage over time. Even when it procs, it just doesn't feel as impactful as some of the other hero talents, so you're pretty much forced to use Druid of the Claw, which is supposed to be all about getting massive ferocious bites off, which are now changed to Ravage on a bleed proc, which I will admit the Ravage feels good to use. It does some pretty heavy AoE damage. Other than that, getting a proc ever so often, the class just doesn't deal enough damage outside of Incarnation. The rotation is boring. Hero talent trees are poorly designed and need a rework. The animations and sound design don't feel good. Oh man, overall, I'm just disappointed about Feral Druid because this is a class I was really considering maining heading into the War Within, and seeing it in this state is honestly really sad. Hopefully Feral Druids get some love soon because I really, really miss this spec and love it overall. Next up, near the bottom of the list, we have the Outlaw Rogue. Now listen, just about the only thing Outlaw has going for it is its performance inside a Mythic Plus and dealing very consistent damage, pretty much non-stop in an AoE scenario. But still, once again, they can't perform as good as they want to because they're heavily target capped with Blade Flurry, which is like 90% of their damage. Also, Outlaw still suffers from constantly having to be lucky and RNG being involved in them with Roll the Bones, and believe it or not, they even doubled down on this with the new Fatebound hero talent tree, where you literally flip a coin to receive a buff or deal damage, and in order for it to actually be effective, you need to flip that same coin on heads or tails at the same time over and over again to receive a buff. That doesn't feel too impactful. It's crazy to me that they double down on the RNG factor here. It doesn't make an impact that much. I love the idea of trying to like leave it up to fate thematically as a pirate, but holy crap, it's not actually possible in a game where you're competing to deal damage. It just does not work well. Even when the Outlaw rotation is at its peak and you're popping off like 5 or 6 between the eyes in one vanish window, you know, getting a bunch of dispatches off for free, still just doesn't feel as good as some of the other specs out there. The whole keep up all these buffs and spam crack shots after a vanish window and, you know, leaving it to RNG, it just doesn't feel good, man. It's kind of BS. You need to have a bunch of weak orders to even keep track of what the hell is going on. I'm not liking where the spec is heading. It's buggy, it's clunky, too much to micromanage, not in love with Outlaw Rogue, even though Rogue is my favorite class in the game. Moving on now to tank with a really heavy heart, we sadly have to say that Protection Paladin is one of, if not the weakest tank in the game. It's really crazy because throughout the War Within beta, they really weren't doing bad up until the recent tank overhaul, which really hit this class a lot harder than some of the other tanks. I'm not saying the class is unplayable, I'm just simply saying that it needs some updates. The biggest problem with protection right now is that most tanks in the game, when it comes to retail WoW, are very self-sufficient. A lot of them heal themselves based on, either the amount of damage they're missing, the amount of damage they take, or simply just flat percentage of their max HP, like for example, Death Knights. Protection Paladin, however, doesn't do this. They heal themselves based on the amount of attack power they have. So all of a sudden, your Word of Glory, your shields, your Bulwark of the Order, which gives you shields based off your Divine Shield ability, all of these sorts of things lose a lot of value because a lot of them are based on the amount of damage you're dealing. So now you're caught in a situation where your health is being increased and your damage isn't increasing with it. So your self-sustain is pretty much cut in half, and I think it's in desperate need of adjustments. I will say I love the Protection Paladin hero talent trees though, and the class is very straightforward to use. I just don't think Protection Paladin is game-changing and amongst the best in the game in any way. Even though personally I love the Lightsmith hero talent tree because it's all about buffing and bringing some more utility and damage reduction for all your allies to enhance your group, but I also think they made some nice improvements toward your Consecration, where after you leave its area of effect, you still gain all the benefits from the spell for 4 seconds. I just think the class is in desperate need of some adjustments defensively and self-sustained wise, and it can really help the class. And for our final class spec that you might want to avoid, we have the Discipline Priest. The sad thing is actually, I really love the gameplay and design of Discipline. The whole dealing damage to then heal your allies thing is very interactive. I think it's fun, but just to be brutally honest, Mistweaver's doing that whole gimmick like 10 times better. I do think the Voidweaver talent tree does amplify this whole consensus a lot better. It gives you a nice new theme to play with your spec that dips a little bit into shadow, that it's tied to. I also really like the way it changes the way your smite works in terms of Void Blast, and the animations are fantastic, and the sound effects are great as well. So the idea is that occasionally, whenever you use your Mind Blast ability, it tears open an Entrophic Rift, goes towards enemies, damages them, and then changes your smite ability into an enhanced version that feels really good to press. And because of that, all your healing is greatly amplified as well. The problem is, outside of this window, your healing is just simply way below average, things do not feel good, and there are countless issues throughout the talent tree. Discipline Priest has been near the bottom and one of the worst performing healer specs throughout the beta, and I would say at this very moment in time, Disc Priest isn't doing that well, and I was really hoping this was going to change as we head into the release, but it doesn't look like that's happening as of right now. Don't forget, if you don't have many friends, have a community or a guild locked in for the War Within, the Comeback Kids got you covered. We just launched our brand new War Within community Discord, and this server is popping right now. Tons of people to meet, make some friends to do content with. You can come raid, do some Mythic Plus, PvP, whatever, man. It's going to be an amazing time. Please, if you do not have many people to play with, or you're looking for some new friends or a guild, join the Discord server and we can get you locked in. I'd like to give a big shout out again for War Thunders for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check the game out for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox. It's completely cross-platform. And, you can get your bonus pack for new and returning players before the War Within launches. Try to have some fun. Just enjoy the game. Casual gaming, man, like we used to. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, War Thunder. Hey, hope you enjoyed the video. Listen, if you guys enjoyed the content, we have a ton of other videos to help you get through the War Within, like these two right here. And since you're already here, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button to join the Comeback Kids family today, because every subscriber matters. Thank you all so much for enjoying the video. I'll see you in the next one.